This is WAW! What a week.
What a week. PoliTricks.
Welcome to WOW What a Week, #PoliTricks. There might not be any pictures of him receiving attention from grannies, but some viewers could literally kiss him for the way he shared his view on things. So please give a warm welcome back to Botsang Modimowame Moiloa.
Brother Fresh.
What's up, my brother, man?
Good morning, man. I'm good.
Okay.
It's spring, bruh. I have to be happy to start jumping. You know, it's officially, actually.
Yes, sir.
There's the spring weekend. This weekend we are in is the official.
It's not the first. It's the 24th.
Spring.
The solstice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's welcome. So we hope we'll get rains, very soon.
Absolutely.
Very bad. Yeah.
In fact, speaking of heritage, I mean, South Africa Heritage Day, often leads to massive debates. Other people saying, yeah, but what is heritage? Are we wasting time? At some stage, Braai Day came into the fray, and comrades were saying, yeah, but you can't call Heritage Days Braai Day. What are your thoughts on our heritage?
Well, look, first we have to remember historically that in the times of apartheid, it's not even apartheid, even before the apartheid, yes, this was known as Shaka Day.
Oh, yes.
Shaka's Day. And those...
Was it not a holiday in KZN? I think it was a holiday.
Those in the know will tell you that in the former KwaZulu, where the recently departed Prime Minister Mangosuthu Buthelezi was the leader, it was a public holiday in there. So moving fast forward, I personally think this was one of those compromise holidays that the ruling African National Congress, together with the National Party and Inkatha Freedom Party, towards the negotiated political settlement. In order to give in to the Zulu nation, they had to make it a public holiday nationally and call it a Heritage Day.
Sure.
So in my view, actually, everybody else is being pushed, Shakas or the Zulu traditional holiday, into the throats of all other South Africans. Not to say I'm complaining that it's a public holiday, but again, as you said, people will say we are braaiing on that day and all those things. So my concern and my problem with it is that it has been reduced to be a heritage day whereby we celebrate diverse heritages of the Republic of South Africa, okay? And if you look at the day,
and is that wrong?
Children will be asked to come to school on their traditional clothes.
It becomes a fashion show.
It becomes a fashion show, but there's another element as well. I know at work, for example, they used to say we must bring our traditional food, and I have a problem with that. I have a problem with this traditional food, and I've always complained to say, why would people call malamogodu, maotwana, chicken feet and chicken heads, and why would they call that African food as if other countries don't eat that? I've lived in Brazil. They eat mogodu there as well.
The Irish have been eating it for years.
But again, if you look at what people regard as African food, the quality of the food, when we grew up, and those who grew up in the farms, they will know that Africans before colonialism have been eating good quality vegetables and meat. The bad part of the meat, if you call mala and maotwana the bad part,
but are they bad
to animals. They are not bad, but I'm just saying they can't be regarded as African food as if it's our invention. I would sit down and say, tinyamabele.
Okay. So sorghum.
Yes, it's a sorghum.
Okay.
It's a traditional staple food of Botswana. And that will make sense. Somebody may sit and say uputu is the staple food of but you can't put morocco wa tepe, the wild spinach, and say it's an African dish. Why should we be reduced to that as but not they are very tasty food. I cook tepe during the week. And more healthy.
I was going to say, for me, the binnengoedes are the best tasting parts of any animal.
Well, you love food.
So I don't know that they should be reduced to the bad parts of the animal.
Okay, that's fine. It may not be bad part of the animal, but my dispute or argument is, why would we regard those dishes as African food? It has nothing to do with Africa. If you have omush, for example, also semp, that I can get away with it. And you look at khemere, people will start making khemere tonight to drink drink on Monday, the Heritage Day, or on Sunday.
What's wrong with ginger beer?
And there's nothing wrong with ginger beer. Actually, I'm going to make one. I love it. But Khemere has nothing. Ginger beer or Khemere has nothing to do with Africa. Understand? If you are talking about the Murula drink that the people of Limpopo invented and will drink historically in their culture events.
Or fermenting murula, like you say.
Exactly.
Or fermenting watermelon.
Exactly.
In fact, watermelon brew, it's actually quite potent. I tasted it. I was 18 years old. I don't know what hit me.
Yeah, I can see. We can see the one who was naughty. Yeah. So, but anyway, this is the Heritage Month, and coincidentally, again, for those who are not in the know, this is the beginning, according to the African history, culture, and tradition. This is the beginning of the African year. The new year in Africa commences this weekend that we are in.
Sure.
So there's a lot of coincidences when is the new year. That's why I don't celebrate New Year personally. Being a Pan-Africanist with New Year in the 1st of January. That is based on the traditional Gregorian calendar.
Sure.
But if you follow the African calendar that was invented by Africans, this is the beginning of our new year. The beginning of new things. And I'm hoping the best for us and for African people in general.
What I'd like to see for us, especially for Heritage Month and Heritage Day, is us not turning it into some fashion show. Almost like it's only at this time that we dress in a certain way. It's only when Botsang is getting married that we dress in a certain way.
Exactly.
You go to West Africa, I don't think they have a Heritage Day because they dress like that every day. It's a way of life that you dress in your regalia or whatever you want to call it. And I'd like to see that.
Part of mental colonialism.
That even in the corporate space, that it should be okay not to be in a suit and a tie because you're wearing what you wear. As long as you're not exposing body parts and whatever else, and you look decent, why the heck not?
I once said, if I become a member of parliament on the State of the Nation address, if I go in there, I'll go in there, and then somebody said...
It's like a loin cloth that just covers the front, basically.
Yeah, so somebody said, just make sure that you've got enough oil and Vaseline in your bums, or you'll be chucked out. You see, this is where I have a problem. When people talk of traditional clothes and attire, and African attire, and I rock in at a place wearing the loincloth or tsera or mungato.
And then you're told you're indecently
and I'm told
exposed.
I'm indecently exposed. So where do we draw the line there? And ladies can walk in kamakabi. You know what I'm saying? So where will we draw the line?
You know what the problem is? I think because we have sexualized the naked form, that's why everything now becomes indecent exposure.
Exactly.
Before, the naked body was not sexualized.
Exactly. And that's where the problem is.
And that's the problem. We've sexualized everything. Where a mother can't even breastfeed because it's like, well, you're exposing your breast. No, I'm feeding a child.
Exactly. Again, decolonizing the African mind. That's what we should start decolonizing this. I don't want to see my little one going to school wearing some Setswana cloth or what, motoisi as they call it, and once a year. And why wouldn't this child dress like that every other weekend, every day when they play?
Like I said, we need to unplug that fashion show.
And there are people who have actually put some texture of African material and cloth and design into fashionable clothes. Whereby, like you said, we don't have to wear a suit and a tie to go to corporate meetings.
Sure.
Our own founder of the South African democracy, Nelson Mandela, moved away from ties when he took over power.
Yeah.
And that's why we end up having shirts that were called Madiba shirts. The guy was more comfortable in that. They became fashion.
But with all due respect, Madiba, we called it viscose, Matariana, in the late 80s. So we beat you to it.
He was not there. He came out of prison and he saw this beautiful shirts.
What is this?
Yes, and he made them fashionable.
He doesn't know we were wearing those in the late 80s already.
We used to wear them
with a pepper jean.
Exactly. Okay, youngsters who are watching these shows will never know what we are talking about.
Let's go to the United Nations. The General Assembly 78 is on. And I think it's the only time where world leaders can come and just get things off their chest, including countries that are seen as pariahs. Unfortunately, obviously, Putin won't be there. He'll have to send a representative. And it's probably the only party where he feels out of place.
Out of place,
Because this
yeah.
is the one place where every leader goes to get stuff off their chest.
Their chest, yeah.
Let's talk about President Ramaphosa's speech. Many impressed by the speech?
Yeah, I've seen that. Look, most of them, when they go to the UNGA, sitting or General Assembly,
Yeah.
as you say, they cough what is on their chest. But for me, that does not excite me. What comes after that? My only problem with the beautiful speech of President Ramaphosa and others, I've listened to him and others, is that they say the right things at all times.
Sure.
And
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
they were bold, but at the end of the day, they get nothing. And also to who? My problem with the UN Assembly is it's like African leaders or leaders from developing countries and the former colonized countries and exploited countries. It's like they are going to the masters.
Sure.
You understand? This tradition and culture of them saying the rich countries must come and invest in Africa. You cannot treat us the way you have been treating us. It's Africa is tired now. The mineral resources of Africa belongs to Africans.
But
But they are looting. But let's even leave looting.
In fact, you are even what's it called? Where you are even working with the very same people who say are taking minerals.
That's exactly
you are
the problem.
shareholders in their mines.
That is exactly
you are taking
my
concomitant
problem.
action against people who are striking.
And the issue is the very same leaders of this government, they are in power to can make the looters not to loot.
Absolutely.
Why should President Ramaphosa and President Ruto and President Mnangagwa and everybody else go to the UN General Assembly and say to their counterparts, stop taking our minerals, stop taking our diamonds and everything else. When they can stop them,
maybe stop giving away our minerals.
You understand?
Yeah.
And I have a problem with that. They talk beautiful, they talk nice, very good speeches. I come from a diplomatic cycles. We used to write these beautiful speeches. They get recited there. And then after that, what happens? The struggle of looting continues behind those speeches.
Yeah.
Another president will come 5 years down the line. They will go and lament and say the same things. Instead of them stopping the looters,
and
like
then
the military,
with them after that,
like the militaries have done in West Africa. We don't want wars and coups and people dying, but there was no other choice. I mean, to an extent that France at the moment in Niger, they told them to take your ambassadors, pack and leave. They're refusing. They're refusing to leave that country physically. Now, what the government...
The arrogance.
The arrogance. But you know what did the government do? Then they blockaded the diplomatic corps so that the French diplomatic staff and the ambassador are not having supplies of food and other things. Because they're refusing to leave. I'm telling you, leave my country, you're refusing. And that's the arrogance, and that's the problem I'm having with African leaders, particularly going to those people. And for example, President Ramaphosa begging the Western countries to please stop sanctions against Zimbabwe. Yes, we know they are punishing Zimbabwe. Yes, we know the sanctions were imposed in order to conduct a regime change in Zimbabwe because they are saying Mugabe was not democratic and the people of Zimbabwe. But now those sanctions are actually hitting at the Zimbabwean people that they were claiming and trying to say they are saving them. You know, let me tell you a story afresh, and the viewers. When I started diplomatic science, Pek Buota was the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Actually, Pek Buota was at some stage the longest serving foreign minister in the world.
Oh, yes, he was.
Yes. Yeah. But let me tell you something I learned from the guy. I worked with him directly at some stage. Let me tell you something I learned from Pek Buota. It was not a nice thing, but I always thought when I recited that was the smartest thing to have said. He once went to address the United Nations about imposing economic sanctions to South Africa during the apartheid year. And Pek Buota said to the UN, you know, South Africa is like a zebra. It's part of the speech. It has the black and the white stripes. And by the way, you only get zebras in South Africa and Kenya, South Africa and Kenya particularly. And he said there's the white and the black stripes. If you take an arrow and you shoot at the white stripes of the zebra, it will collapse and die with the black stripes. Just put your mind into it. Forget that he was defending apartheid and all that. Yes. But put your mind into it to say,
you're hurting all of us.
We are hurting all of us. We're all getting, so we were prepared to sacrifice. We were prepared to get hurt. But in the Zimbabwean case, the Western countries that have imposed sanctions on Zimbabwe, they were saying they were doing it to punish the Robert Mugabe's administration. You understand? And who are they punishing? That administration is still sitting today with the success of Robert Mugabe, and they punished the Zimbabwean people, which now it started, flocking into
So are you
countries.
saying sanctions against Zimbabwe should be lifted?
They should have long been lifted. They were not justified sanctions. But Africa,
we are fresh from an election that even SADC said was anything but free and fair.
But they still recognize. You see, that's my problem. The people who are imposing sanctions in that country, they still give platform and recognize President Mnangagwa as a head of state in Zimbabwe.
What choice do they have?
But again, fresh. This is my argument. They don't have a choice. Why do they have a choice when it comes to sanctions? So their sanctions, have they been effective in removing an illegitimate or an unfair government? Have they been? They've not been. So in a sense, it doesn't make sense to punish people. It's the same situation as when you have a relationship with your spouse and you have kids, and then when you fight, you don't pay or you don't feed the kids. You lock the fridge.
You lock the fridge.
Our thinking must be different. The sanctions against South Africa, they were legitimate. They did have an impact on South Africa, both negative and positive. Sure. The positive impact of those is that South Africa became self-sustainable. And as then
started making your own stuff.
And as then that we came and we destroyed that whole stuff. We destroyed Sasol, we destroyed electricity, we destroyed everything. We collapsed everything. And again, it's a sign of our leaders ready to govern us properly and make sure that we benefit from the natural resources. I was listening to President Ruto's speech as well.
Of Kenya.
Kenya.
Yeah.
One of my favorite leaders in the continent. Very beautiful speech. He was talking about how Africa is not supposed to even be hungry because we are feeding the world with minerals. We have everything.
Not a single African should go to bed hungry. Not a single African.
What are they doing? Why are they still having colonial era miners, DBS, Anglo-American mining in our land? And this is where the African liberation struggle started from. And I've said it many times. We can scream and tumble and change governments and vote and talk taxes and what increments of salaries and what, for as long as African people do not own the land and its minerals, we are doomed.
We are guests on our own continent.
We don't even have land. That's why we
We're just guests on our own continent.
That's why these people are dictating to us. People saying, I listened to President Lula as well, talking of development of women and youth, as a developing country. And he was saying, and even President Ramaphosa said it.
Lula da Silva of Brazil.
Yes. He was saying the IMF and the World Bank, they must not be pushed in the corner in when they aid developing countries. It must be in different portions and quotas than when they do it with developed countries. Again, I have a problem with that. Why should we be aided when we have diamonds?
We don't need aid. We need leadership.
We need leadership.
Yeah.
We don't need aid. Why are we? We give people oil, diamonds, uranium, platinum. And then after we give them, they sell it back to us, and they give us change, and we go and we borrow money from them. We borrow. It's the same as you work for somebody, or you produce a factory that produces something, and then you hire people to work for you. They work, and after that you go and you borrow money from your employees or your workers. And we're in that situation. We're not supposed to be getting foreign aid. We are supposed to be chasing colonial settlers out of Africa, out of America. I don't say we should chase white people into the sea, or that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying people who are here to exploit our minerals. We should wake up and say enough, it's enough. Yeah. Before the little that's left. There's more gold in England than any other country in the world.
And they don't have one mine.
They don't have one.
Not a single mine.
Exactly. And for me, that's my challenge with the United Nations sitting, that meeting that has been happening for 78 years, 78 sittings.
They've been talking for 78 years.
They've been talking, and things are getting worse. They've been borrowing, things are getting worse. We are now in debt in South Africa than ever before in the history of this country. Even worse than when the apartheid government was borrowing money. I mean, again, they've been talking, but during economic embargo against South Africa, the South African government owed IMF. How did they owe IMF when we were under sanctions and economic embargo? How did that happen?
Absolutely.
And for me, this cheap talk, pep talk. Beautiful speech, President Ramaphosa, thumbs up, good English, but let's see what comes out of that. He's laughing at me.
Let's stay at the UN General Assembly. President Tshisekedi of the DRC says the UN peacekeeping forces have been here for so long, but we still have insurgents. We still have our people dying. There's still this resistance. Maybe you guys must speed up and get the hell out of my country. What are your thoughts on that?
Support to Tshisekedi. If I've brought you in as a peacekeeper, and after 25 years, there's still no peace. I was stationed in Kigali, Rwanda, in 2000, I think 2000. Those people were still there, and they're still there today, and there's still war.
Yeah.
You understand? And again, there's other elements to us that there's been skirmishes between the citizens now and those UN peacekeepers who are carrying rifles. I've never seen peacekeepers carrying rifles. How do you keep peace by carrying rifle? You kill somebody first, then somebody dies, then there's peace because somebody has died. But the UN peacekeeping mission, which is called, I think, MASCON, has completely failed to bring peace in the eastern part. We should also recall that it is also only in the eastern part of the DRC where the Interahamwe, the militia rebels from Rwanda, they ran into that, and that's why there's this conflict between the two countries. But
what do you need to crush that, though? Because they only have X amount of resources. You are a whole country, a whole government, and you've got the UN.
Yes, and you failed. Understand? So
25 years of the UN there.
Somebody is funding the rebels and the militia in there, and it will not surprise me that the French are involved and other foreign forces that are involved. That's why they survive. I mean, such a militia with a certain number, as you say, there's a whole UN, there's a whole army of the DRC, there's money in the DRC, the richest country with minerals in this continent, and they are failing to contain that. Maybe the UN must leave that and let the DRC handle that part of their country and the region. But again, somebody may say it's very risky, you can't leave a vacuum there. I don't say they should leave a vacuum. I'm saying let them increase the forces of that country towards. It can even bring peace between them and Rwanda, because the stress between Rwanda and the DRC now is actually that disputed part. That President Kagame says we chase these people who were becoming rebels in our country. They ran into the DRC. They used that part of the eastern bloc of the DRC as a springboard to Rwanda.
Back in there,
you understand? So it has caused a lot of conflict and strain between the two neighbors. On that part. But I think I want to support President Tshisekedi. Let the UN peacekeeping mission leave. Where have they ever succeeded? The UN historically, peacekeeping mission.
Didn't they succeed in, not Ethiopia,
Somalia?
In Somalia.
Oh, it's worse. Look at Somalia today. It's worse.
No, at the time that they were there, 15, 20 years ago.
How many people did they kill? Kosovo, Somalia, or how many people died when they were there? So, but everywhere else, I don't know if the UN peacekeeping forces have the teeth to can handle this. Actually, we have seen how, militias and groups like that Russian guy who is apparently late his battalion team. They are actually doing better than the UN, which is more equipped, has more numbers. You find that this militia, South Africa, squashed former apartheid era military who were also trying to become forces that were used by some African countries, mercenaries and all that. Mercenaries do a better job in conflicts than the UN keep peace. I don't say we should use mercenaries because their duty is to kill. You understand? These ones are to bring peace, but we don't see peace.
But with death, then there's a dead man creates no problems.
Well, it depends who you kill.
Maybe the DRC need mercenaries.
Well, I'm not going to support any mercenaries. But who do you kill if it's innocent civilians who are becoming victims of this peacekeeping?
No, not
process?
the collateral damage, but if Botsang is a problem.
Yeah, well, that's what they do. You think like an American. Now, you think if Botsang is a problem, we should execute him. No. Put him in jail. If he's not drawing the line, put him in jail. We have prisons for that. So
if he shoots at you in your quest to put him in jail, what do you do?
That's where people say the Buddhist in me dies. If somebody points a firearm at me, the intention is to kill me, then I'll shoot back.
Then it's on.
Yeah, then it's on. You understand? But again, civilians, and it's happening in South Africa, it's happening in KZN, it's happening in the townships. I woke up this morning to stories that 19 kids ate space cookies. There's a war everywhere. Some it's with Dacha, some it's with some wars, it's drugs. We are faced with drug war in South Africa that is killing our youth and nation. But I think the UN can do better. Look, I'm one of the people who doesn't believe in the UN.
Sure.
Good charter, good UN charter, but I don't believe in them. They have become toothless. They have become useless. They failed to call the US, France, and the UK where they started wars and killed people in Iraq, in Iran, Afghanistan.
So you're saying they should stick to polio and cleaning water?
Yeah, let them stick to environmental cleaning and focus on those things.
And inoculating children.
Inoculating children, as long as they don't inoculate us with wrong vaccines like they did now with the COVID. That you see, they also failed. WHO is an arm of the United Nations. They dismally failed with COVID because America was controlling everything. America was controlling. The world came to stand still because some people came and, concocted something in their minds. I'm one of the people who didn't do the Jovicho thing, and I'm proud that I resisted to get vaccinated for COVID because I knew that as a political and pharmaceutical and financial issue towards people vaccinating and all that. And look at what we are where we are today as the world. There's more sick people. People are dying and sick and can't bear children and all those things. Not to say I want more kids, but I'm glad that I did not vaccinate for COVID. And
you love the fact that you have an option in case the younger woman you meet does want a child. Let's bring it back home. The Department of Social Development was in the news this past week because some people were not paid their grants. It's been called a glitch. It was glibly called a glitch in the system. I don't know how they would operate if there was a glitch that made sure they were not paid the couple millions they get a year.
Millions?
No, as in, these ministers.
Oh, you mean their salaries?
Yeah.
It never happens.
No, who are quick to say, no, it was just a glitch. No, you can't be glib about it, there was just a glitch. It's not just a glitch. If for some person, it's the difference between whether we're eating tonight or not. You know? And the fact that over and above that, you underspend by 15 billion rand that you have to take back.
Fresh, when we talk of maladministration, this country, we are being maladministered. And I heard people, the DA actually officially has gone to court to challenge this glitch or technical glitch. I've been in government for over 25 years. We are almost 30 years in democracy. Have you ever heard once that there was a glitch in Persal? The government salary system for public servants? Once? Never. Never. It never happens that public servants wake up and their salaries are not reflecting. So it means we have the ability and the capabilities to do things right. Yes, the number of public servants is not equivalent to the number of the people the government is doing grants. Yeah. But it's not about numbers. It's about doing the right thing for the right people who are in need of that. A situation with this glitch, before we go to the DA case and the 15 billion that was paid back to Treasury into them. Imagine, I've got a grandmother, and somebody yesterday was telling me about their mother who's running an NPO. And let me tell you what caused some of these glitches is corruption. And I'll bring it down to you. It's corruption in a sense that every time there is a pot where public servants and political office bearers, they want to steal, they will create entities and NGOs and NPOs. The same as Life AC Domain, it was because of politicians were owning those NPOs and NGOs. So that's how they siphon money from the state coffers into those NPOs. Now we'll have somebody saying, my aunt will run an NPO, and then the state will fund that NPO through SASSA so that they could help, the elderly people, the children that are orphans and so forth. And it is because people were stealing into that. Now the government trying to tighten the screw, or administration changing, or directors changing hands and tightening or wanting to put their people, because some they change the system not because they want to clean up, because they want now to be their person who are eating the state monies. And that's where problems happen. You understand? The Department of Social Development was trying to clean up on the so-called ghost benefactors of this process. No. Then they find that actually those benefactors are people sitting in those offices trying to do that. And that's why the DA has a problem now with saying, but people are starving, people are going to bed on empty stomach. How can a department underspend 15 billion in the 2022-2023 financial year? Because the department sent back 9 billion at the end of the medium term. After 6 months last year, around 9 billion back to Treasury. But again, you realize that you are supposed to spend a certain billions and you didn't spend 9 billion. You send it back. Come after another 6 months, you spend another 6 billion. So it means no corrective measures and processes were put into place in order not to repeat what has happened. We know, me and you, that if you go to rural areas, if you go to township, people are sleeping on empty stomachs.
Sure. And most social workers will point, if you ask the average social worker in your average community, which are the families that need help?
Yes.
They will point to those families.
We know.
And some of them are even feeding kids out of their own pockets.
Yes.
But there's 15 billion being sent back.
Exactly.
How?
And that is an absolute a lack of proper administration. It's a complete failure.
And we have a shortage of social workers. Then why are we not siphoning some of that money towards, let's hire social workers so that
take care of those people? I was saying to somebody, there's something in the public finance process. It's called when you have a budget and you can divert money. You can ask for permission. You don't just do it automatically. You can ask for permission to verimentation of funds. So you can take funds that were budgeted, for example, to buy a vehicle and said, I do not need a vehicle. I actually need more bread for feeding scheme. And you can get permission. There's processes that are well defined by the Treasury on how to do that. You veriment those funds from the intended purpose. Somebody asked me, I was suggesting that actually they should have used that money to help on social ills. Social development is not only grants. Social ills includes unemployment. It includes the drug problems, which is somebody will say unemployment
cleaning
is labor.
up the streets.
Somebody will say it's labor. Another person will say dealing with drugs, it's health.
Some will say it's law enforcement.
It's law enforcement. No. But I'm saying those are social ills. So that's where we work for one government. The one administration administers the country and it's feeding the people. If social development is sitting with a budget that is supposed to be giving people grants, and less people are claiming because of the administrative glitches, because of the complexity of it, because of the cost of going to get that money, they decide to send it back. I would have used that money towards education and development. I would have used that money towards aiding graduates who are on the streets. I don't say the government, I don't know what they did with it, but I don't say the government is not aiding and trying to aid. But what I'm saying is there was 15 billion. At the end of it.
That was not spent.
That was not spent, and that was supposed to be spent and was budgeted for.
And we have more than 15 billion worth of problems.
Absolutely. Right now, the country has gone into bankruptcy. And somebody somewhere couldn't spend 15 billion that could have stimulated the economy. Government is the biggest spender and the biggest stimulant of the economy. And I hear politicians are trying to say, yeah, but it can be government can't do this alone. I agree, government can't do this alone. But the government is also letting the business sector to make money by trading with government, and after the profits are leaving the shores of this country, they are not reinvested into the community. We are a developing country. We are actually a poor country. Not by mineral resources, but generally when you look at the population demographics. And we still have people taking money out of this country to offshore investments, to world banks and international investing companies. And government is letting that happen. And they're letting business people to invest their money in stock markets abroad instead of aiding the government. And I can't force you to put your money and help government, but I can stop doing business with you.
Sure. I
can stop giving you government contracts if you are not in a position to can help the government after we've made profit out of government. So self-sustainability has become very important. I said 2 weeks ago on this platform, we should have learned a lot from the Afrikaners, the Boers, or the apartheid here. We should have learned. Even O.R. Tambo has said, we can't throw away everything of the enemy as if it's bad, like we did with the Mangope infrastructure in the former Bufuta. We can't do that. We should have learned how the Afrikaners survived sanctions and survived through apartheid. We should have taken something from their leaf, you understand? So, but we are failing into the self-sustainable. And I'll use Orania. That is not even the 10th province of South Africa. I think it's the country, independent country, just like Lesotho inside South Africa. One, we are letting them do it, and they're showing success.
Sure.
They are showing very successful and stability. They're feeding themselves. We can do that as government. You understand? We can stimulate the economy by spending on things that will stimulate the economy of the country. Instead, on packs and salaries of politicians, on luxury cars. You know, the bloated government. We are bankrupt now.
But aren't they meant to be spending cuts, though?
Sorry?
Are they not supposed to be spending cuts and a whole new bill for consolidated state entities?
Well, let me tell you, this whole new bill, people must be very careful. We have...
But can you talk about the spending cuts first?
Look, fresh spending cuts. What are they cutting? Increase of public servant salaries. What are they cutting? Don't spend more. Stop now because there's no money. But why don't they start cutting on unimportant things? Let me use an example. This X5. Not because I don't like BMW. This minister's driving with a police at the back, a police inside you, and one at the back. Those are the cutting. Why are they driving with 3 cars? Why are the ministers having bodyguards all over them driving super big engines, not standard cars? Why don't they drive their Toyota Corollas to work? Why? They can sit. Why do they have to drive a car with 2 million? Why don't they start cutting there?
There's a saying, when you start being afraid of your own people, there's a problem.
The one who have put you into power, you understand? But okay, fine. Let's say they need bodyguards. It's okay. We don't want them to be assassinated and all that. But the luxurious life that they live in, you understand? Why don't ministers drive basic cars? Why? Okay, let's say they want to drive a Mercedes-Benz. Why should it be an S500, not a C-class, an entry level of Mercedes-Benz? Why don't they do that?
Because I'm a minister, Pella. People must know.
No, but before you are a human being, and which people must know? Which people must know?
I'm important. Mus.
Yeah, you see, that's why we should use our vote very, very carefully. And they don't want to even change those regulations. The government is
there's a ministerial handbook.
That ministerial handbook is absolute nonsense.
And that ministerial handbook seems like it's cast in stone.
Yeah, and who writes the ministerial handbook? Who writes it? Guess who?
No, Moses went up the mountain.
MPs who are hoping, are sitting as MP hoping to become cabinet members in the future. They create the ministerial handbook, and we are still entrusting those people with a vision that they will cut spending of this country. They can't. And what cut spending are they talking about? It's us. Let me tell you what's going to happen. Somebody was saying maybe they'll increase taxes. I said, no, they will increase taxes, indirectly. Fuel levy at some stage. They will make sure that the taxes that we pay for income tax, the bracket will be shrinked. It will not, expand to can accommodate us more. And that's where the spending, and then they'll wake up. You don't go and save the economy of the country by bringing an abrupt cost-cutting measures. You understand? You don't do that. It doesn't work. It never worked. At some stage, the government came with a policy to say officials or ministers, whoever, they must stop flying business class, especially on a short distance like that. It lasted for what? Few months. Back at square one. Understand? I would sit and say, let me start with my cabinet. If I was the president, let me start with my cabinet. No more business class. If you want to upgrade to business class, you'll pay the difference.
Out of your pocket.
You'll pay the difference out of your pocket. You understand? We stop that. But again, Fresh, do you know how much government spend on vehicles and ministers' bodyguards and 2 houses, one in Cape Town, one in Tshwane? You know how much payment? You know how much does it cost us per annum for one minister? About 44 million. That's what it cost us. 44 million rands per minister. I haven't counted those 400 MPs.
And then there's the deputy. And often we don't know the role of the deputy.
Yeah, but again, that's another problem with this country. The deputy ministers are not having powers of the minister. That's why when a minister is away another minister
The deputy doesn't step up.
The deputy doesn't step up. So what are they deputizing? Why are we sitting with this bloated cabinet? What are these deputy ministers deputizing? They are ceremonial, actually. You must see what deputy ministers
comrades need jobs and positions.
Well, the nation needs food. The nation needs electricity. The nation needs water. There's not been water in city of Joburg. The nation needs infrastructure to be taken care of.
Then you must work hard and get a Jojo. That's a deputy water minister.
Well, work where when there's no employment. People who are using Jojo tags, except those in Gauteng who are environmentalists, it's people who are poor, actually. They're trying to collect water and preserve. It's people who are low-income earners, you understand, or people in the farm and rural areas. But I think we have a government of politicians who either they do not know what's going on or they don't care. But I think it's the latter, because they know, they grew up in the township, they grew up in rural areas, they started being activists, then they became MPs, then they've been rising, climbing up the ladder. They didn't come from nowhere.
But we're not in the struggle to be poor, Mos.
Yeah,
so we must move out of where we grew up.
We are no longer in the struggle. Are they in the struggle of what now? Of looting. That's the problem. We are in the struggle of what? We should be in the struggle of proper governance, proper administration, and taking care of the people who vote us into power. That is the struggle. That should be what gives.
And it's such a simple ask.
It's a very simple thing.
It's such a simple ask just to deliver the basics. And you know, we'll be naive to think there's no government where people eat. Yes, eat. But can you eat after the children have eaten?
Exactly.
Don't
That's
eat
what a
and then
parent
hope
does.
the children will find food.
Let me make an example. 15 billion from social development. And there are students today who didn't get grants of NEFSAs to can be a tertiary and study. You can see the disjuncture in government. But again, I can tell you, this bill that's coming of state entities bill, we created this state entities, most of them. We created them post-1994. They are a mess. They messed up. But tell me one state entity that is functioning proper consistently. Complete mess. Even those that were functioning well, like Transnet, that were doing well, they are collapsing day in, day out. And now you want to go and club them. You take a bunch of failures, you want to club them together under a certain bill or act, and you expect them that we are resolving the problem by clubbing failures. You can't do that. You can't go and club failures. Fix these entities first. There's been proposals that entities must report to the, for example, instead of Minister of Public Enterprises, they must report to their mother department or shareholders that are the core business. You know, ESCOM must report to energy and so forth. You have Transnet reporting, is dealing with transport and logistic issues, and is reporting to state enterprises, not to the Department of Transport. There's a problem there. There's a serious problem. So I don't know until when and how much do comrades want to eat, and up to when. It has been, comrades, stop, man. It's been enough now. Let's stop and give the people, at least for the next 5 years. Let the comrades now, let's give the people. And let me tell you, the sad part about our people is they will go and vote for the same parties. And all of them, it's not about the ANC as the ruling. They are all in power. They are all in government. And even if they make noise, but they eat together. So, you understand? So I don't think the DA is any better in the Western Cape, because if you look at the Western Cape, the townships and the rural areas of the Western Cape are as poor as any other rural and township place, if not worse. So this issue of black people in this country, the poor people in this country, and trusting their well-being in the hands of politicians, it's not gonna solve the problems. It is not. And people will keep on voting and ask me, okay, what can we do now? Dismantle the government. Let there be no outright winner. Dismantle it.
But won't that leave everything hamstrung now? Because now there's no outright winner. Therefore, we're wasting time getting into coalitions and negotiations.
But Government of National Unity did better than what is happening now. What it does is we must play politicians. We must make them guard each other.
Okay, force them into a room.
Force them into a room.
Make it work.
Yeah, make this thing work. Understand? If there's no Esganson or outright winner, he will be forced to go and sit in a room with even the minority of 2 or 3 seats. And those who care, let's be fair and honest. I think there are those with some little, fiber and moral that are still left in them who may talk sense into the others. But again, look. It's a sad state of affairs that we are failing to feed the people with basics. It's a sad state of affairs in South Africa, and all because of corruption, not because this country can't, not because we don't have good policies, not because we don't have laws, but because we have corrupt people and who do not care. We find people spending government monies on very useless things. Very useless things. Parties. I heard with the sad accident that happened in Limpopo. I heard the MEC of Popi or in Limpopo complaining, and saying, let us fix the roads. I'm like, hey, MEC, who's a politician here? Don't come on television and on a platform to come and say, we must fix the roads. No. You drink tea every day with your colleague who's supposed to fix that road. How do you come when there's a funeral or there's a disaster and say we must fix the road? It shouldn't work like that.
Who's us?
And I sometimes ask myself, where do these ministers drive? Where do they drive? Really? Because they must go and drive in the Northwest and the Free State and the Vaal. Actually, it's safer in the Vaal.
They must spend a week in Mafikeng. Yeah. Just in Mafikeng.
Yes. In Mafikeng, Vaal, and the Free State, actually, it's safer to drive off the road than on the road. You are more safer, your vehicle and all that. You get off the road. If you drive in the Free State, you can see people are driving next to the tar road.
But you're a Jeep driver. I'm sure you even climb a mountain unprovoked.
Well, look, I tell people that when I see potholes and humps and wrong roads, I'm very happy.
Quickly, the DA case against the Department of Social Development.
Yeah, it is that one for the 15 billion unspent and the return, and also the failure, the glitches. The DA is simply saying they need explanation. They are calling for Minister Lindiwe Zulu to resign, but I think it's, well, she's the head, but I think it's a more administrative thing. Sure. SASA is an agency of the department, but the DA is going to court. They actually want the government to explain how, when people are starving, did they send 15 billion back to the Treasury by end of March 2023? They also want to know what actually happened that people did not get their grants. What is that glitch? And what has the government done to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen again in future?
And we can't keep having the courts remind the people who are meant to deliver that you're not delivering. We can't have the courts saying, why are children dying in pit latrines? Fix the problem.
We are running the country by courts. The judges in courts are actually telling political office bearers and public administrators what to do. Something that they're supposed to know. It's your job.
It's in your job description.
It's in your job description. It's something that you're supposed to know. And the judges must go and tell the people that no, you must go and do this thing. Go and do this thing. And we still are a quiet nation when that happens. But also those who are supposed to be watchdogs. Public Protector's Office, Auditor General, Public Service Commission, parliamentary committees. They are sitting there fresh and they are not doing anything about this thing. The other day we spoke about how useless parliamentary questions are. Somebody complains to Parliament, they raise questions to a particular minister, they send that minister those written questions, the minister responds, it gets debated in Parliament, and it ends there. So you go and you explain why you did something wrong, why you didn't do your job, and it's okay. It ends there. You understand? So why?
No consequences.
No consequences, and that's why there's no improvement.
Sure.
Because where there's failure, I've never heard of a situation where a president sacks a minister. And I'm not talking about President Ramaphosa only, generally, sacks a minister for failing to do your job.
Sure.
And it must be the reason to say, you have failed to perform. What happened to the monitoring of performance, management process of ministers reporting to the president? The president is like the CEO. We've got a monitoring team, and these are employees under the president, the ministers. They're failing, and if they fail, the worst is, even if it's time to reshuffle or an opportunity to reshuffle, you move them to another position. I mean, really? We can't be operating like
There's
that.
a rotten apple here. Maybe if I move it to the oranges.
To the orange bag.
The oranges won't get rotten.
Yeah, or the oranges will cleanse the apple. That's how we are running the country.
I think let's wrap it up at that, Botsang.
No, thanks, my brother.
As always, thank you for your insights and your views.
No,
and in fact, just based on what we've been saying, there's a saying that nothing changes if nothing changes. And for some reason, we are not learning that nothing changes if nothing changes.
Absolutely.
Where do we find you on social media?
botsangm@gmail.com, or you can go on a social media handle at botsangm, and then on the cell phone 082-485-9100.
If you see a guy in a Jeep climbing a mountain, it's him. He looks for potholes.
Not mountains, because it's illegal. I'll get into trouble by the environmentalists. But potholes, no. When I know I'm gonna drive to my hometown, Randfontein, and to Joburg, the Roodepoort area, I'm better off in a Jeep.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, it's killing my pocket, man. The fuel is it's bad.
For some of us that can't afford Jeeps or fuel, we will stick to podcasting. And hashtag PoliTricks. Coming to you live from AMP Studios, downtown Jozi. Shout out to Africa Podcast Network. Pezulu Works, Trevor and his team for the cinematography. Otis the Flow Fraser for our audio imaging. Our guest, Botsang Moiloa. Creative producer, Kuvesh Mohan. And show producer, Keletso Modisa King. Email us, waw@africapodcastnetwork.com. We're out of here. Have a great week, in spite of yourselves. Nothing changes if nothing changes.